Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on your time zone. I remain Chigos Ndibo, the host anchor, bringing your way unbiased reportage of events. Please, if you are joining us, kindly share this video so that we'll have a good number of persons who will join into today's program. Is one of those important programs, of course, you may not want to miss. Share this video, let it go viral. I welcome you once again. Today being the 5th of May, being the fifth month according to the English calendar, 2024. We are here to discuss and analyze most trending issues that borders on existence as a people, and most importantly, as it borders on the Eastern people within the Nigerian geographical expression, formerly known as the defunct Biafran region. We are going to look at what is happening and the latest developments of events as time rolls by. Of most recent is being discussed that you're welcome. Thank you so much. How are you doing, bro? Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, please kindly share these videos. Let it get viral. Let more people join us because it's an expository video. It's a video where we must learn lessons, where we must share ideas and history, and of course, learn from the past, which has been our experience. The present is where our interest lies. But our major concern, of course, lies in the future. And without the present being our interest, we might not have, of course, anything called the future. It is becoming very clear and very necessary that everyone who is privileged to be alive today will get to know his history, the stories, of course, where he comes from and what is happening around him, relaying it to the current realities of today. We tend to forget the history because possibly within the Nigerian academic or education curriculum, it was intentionally abrogated, it was intentionally removed, silenced, in order to keep millions of persons in the dark. But the nature has a way, the traditions has a way of relaying important information across to the next generation. And here we are today. I have been told of several stories by my parents. As you can cite, this is my father's picture. Let me just show you this. If you can see it very clear, yeah, what happens to be, of course, though the environment is not very clear, but I hope you could see that is wearing his military camouflage. Yes, and that is during the Biafran War. I was able to secure these pictures where I lost most of them. You know, if I have known, and if there are facilities like the phone, then I would have been able to save most of these treasures. But that notwithstanding, that went by us from what we are to discuss here this evening. It is a very sensitive issue, and we must, of course, take it as such. It has been clear that there is this culture of silence. Everybody, directly or indirectly, intentionally, has been silenced over issues of importance, and the nagging issues that needed urgent attentions has been swept under the carpet, and things are getting worse by the day. And some people think that the only way to being safe is to remain silent. We're here to break that culture of silence that was intentionally designed to keep millions, or if not tens of millions of persons in the dark over what is happening and the true realities of events as they continue to unfold. Just back to the memory lane, we understood, of course, the very essence of what led to the Civil War. It was very clearly that Ojukwu, who happens to be a serving colonel in the Nigerian army, then Ojukwu, Din Chukwuemeka Ojukwu of blessed memory and internal leader of the Igbo people, or by extension the Biafrans, made a very frantic positions. You know, as I rightly maintain that Igbo has a culture that Ebe Berugo Bere, nke si nwanne ya bela nkukwa ya, means they have that culture of equity, and that is what my name means, Ejiogu. Equity, balance, fairness. Let everybody be given equal opportunity to express and aspire and fulfill his or her aspirations. This was what prompted Ojukwu to address those imbalance and injustice that was meted, of course, after the coup. And the next person, or the most senior in the military hierarchy, was a Yoruba man who should have stepped in after the coup was, of course, a counter coup was successful. But this Ogundipe was a coward in military camouflage. He was a coward. He felt he could die, he could be dealt with. Of course, he has to run away for his life rather than stepping in and standing the storm. He could not make himself available because of that act of cowardice, which have kept Nigerian state in the dark. The culture of silence, the culture of I don't want to talk, the culture of looking crucial issues on touch, and disaster is looming. Disaster is hitting everybody front and back. Ogundipe has to flee because of that act of cowardice. But Ojukwu maintained he is the most senior who should step into the shoe, of course, as the military hierarchy personality who should step in. Then he fled, and Ojukwu said, then another, the next senior hierarchy should be called up to superintend over the affairs of Nigeria. I'm just laying the foundation on the basis of which this discussion will stand. And that to me is not out of board. That to me is not asking too much. He was not asking Nigeria to make him the president or the commander of the armed forces of the federation as of that time, but he was saying, let the right thing be done the right way. Whosoever that deserve such commendations, such positions by virtue of merit or hierarchy should be given the chance in order to promote equity, in order to promote healthy competitions, coexistence, coherent within the entire system. And some group of persons or regions misunderstood his position. And they thought, of course, they have to lord it over to other people. Of course, the abracadabra was done, and Gowon eventually emerged as the next president or general of the federation, who happens to superintend over the affairs of Nigeria. And to this, Ojukwu has to ask questions. You see, sometimes when you ask questions, you are treated as an enemy. When you ask questions, especially when things are going wrong, but it only takes one who is brave, who is courageous, who is determined to build an equitable system to address issues when there are anomalies going on. So Ojukwu asked that why should Gowon be made the head of states? Why he is a lower ranking officer in the military. In fact, Ojukwu was a far high ranking officer, was a colonel then. How can just a little whatever you call it, combat man in the military be made the head of state, which negates, of course, the the code of conduct of the military. But then the military were similarly disciplined. But that was the starting points of decadence, the starting points of derailment, the starting points of erring that have left Nigeria descending abysmally. The military have been compromised. Of course, that was a seed of discord, a seed of destruction that was sown. And that eventually, of course, Ojukwu has to say, well, if this is how you intended to go, let us go to Aburi and decide on how we can control the regions, that is federating units. Let Nigeria become a federating unit, and eventually that was done in Aburi Accord. It was written, affirmed, of course, agreed by both parties. There was no chaos, there was no misunderstanding. But when Gowon came back to Nigeria, what happened eventually? Awolowo, who is an epitome of wisdom, but was so crafty to have deceived Gowon, who happened to be gullible, and at that instance, telling him, why must you assent to such details captured in this document, that it will devolve power to different regions and make the center weak and make you of no influence. Well, Gowon, being selfish, as I, of course, see it to be, he said, well, we are not going on with that agreement. And as such agreement was set aside. If that agreement was implemented, Nigeria would have been the best country in the whole world. Nigeria would have been a tourist hub, a center of attraction to the entire world, because it will give each region's opportunity to develop and grow at their own pace, encouraging healthy competitions across board. Of course, when the Nigerians practice federating or regional government, Awolowo advanced the West using the cocoa and other local produce, of course, engaging the masses of the region, giving free educations. That's why most of the Yorubas were able to access education. If not Awolowo, they wouldn't have seen the first walls of education, because they were able to control their natural resources, prominently cocoa, to the advantage of the communities or the locals within those regions. And Awolowo thought it's wise to empower the region through education so that they can favorably compete with other regions and the world at large. Of course, kudos to him. The Yoruba or the Western region advanced economically, and of course, that was credited to Awolowo's ingenuity or prudence. That notwithstanding, the Eastern region becomes, I think, under Opala, becomes one of the most advancing, developing economy in the world. So past that of the West, because of the ingenuity and the hands that came into play, there was booming economy growing. The North were not left behind. Of course, you saw what happened, the pyramids, granite pyramids and all that. Of course, made the North, placed the North on the higher pedestal. They were able to export their granite in large quantities, in commercial quantities. They encouraged agriculture. And that, unfortunately, with time, starts dropping. By then, the allocation sharing formula was 50-50. Every region can harness their own potentials resources and remit 50% down to the center. But eventually that's changed after the Civil War was executed by Gowon, where you saw millions of millions of Biafrans killed, even by the suggestion of Awolowo. I may not go into details about that. My concern is what happens. That what would have made Nigeria a confederating unit, advanced in economy and the development of human capital development, unfortunately was jettisoned, abandoned by the head of states and his cronies or his allies or his advisors. Today, they are paying off. Unfortunately, most of them are dead, but Gowon is alive, witnessing the horror, the pain, the damage, the agony. Of course, he has subjected the entire country, not just the Biafrans. Today, yes, the Biafran war has ended technically, but in reality, we are still fighting the war. So this culture of silence is what we have to break. The war has not ended. The war of hostility, of hatred, of segregation, of ethnic bigotry, sentiments in all facets of existence within the Nigerian state of contraction have assumed unusual dimension. That's why it is almost impossible to foster peace, unity, equity, and fairness. We are more or less divided along our ethnic interests, cultural interests, or personal or political interests, rather than building a coherent system or nature, which unfortunately is almost impossible as it stands now. Now, making reference to Ohanaeze, who of most recent, there was a leaked video or record, video record or audio record that Ohanaeze are making plans to go and apologize to the Fulanis. On what basis? On the basis that the Nigerian coup that was carried out by the Nigerian military was now an Igbo coup, which led to the deaths of Sultana of Sokoto. You can imagine this level of sacrilege, this level of personalities who should know better. Are they not aware of history? That in 1937, the Igbo people were massacred, their kings or Ezes were massacred. The same thing happened in 1945, where Igbos were massacred across the entire northern region. Then after 1953, the same thing happened when then Philip, what do you call it again? Enahoro, of course, moved the motion for the independence of Nigeria. Akintola and his colleagues went to the north to canvass and seek for the support of the north, which led to some revolutions or crises that led to the massacre of Igbos. Just a point. Igbo's blood has been used to establish Nigeria, even when the North are saying we don't want the state called Nigeria. We are not prepared, we are not ready to become an entity or to come under an entity called Nigeria. We are not ready for the independence. We better prefer the British, of course, the colonial masters governing us, than an Igbo man, of course, becoming or superintending over us. And as such, we are not ready, of course, because then Igbos are well advanced in education, and of course, in other field of endeavors. They are doing exceptionally well based on merit. They were, of course, to be considered as the most informed personalities, then followed by the Yorubas. They said, we are not going to tolerate this. If you allow this to happen, they will have dominance over us and might possibly overshadow us. Of course, that leads to something that leads to something. Then after that, what happens then is that during those days, because of the communal engagement of the eastern regions, every community, when you are, every community have a palm, what you call a farmland where palm oils were being planted. The community owns the regions, the place, or the farmland. They will harvest those proceeds of the farm and use it to train some bright children, to train them into different fields of endeavors. Once you are one of the brightest in the community, regardless of whose child that person is, you have access to education. You have access, of course, they will encourage you, the locals. This has been the entrepreneurial spirit of an Igbo man. Igbo encourage, they are known to be loving, encouraging one another. Even, of course, after the war, you saw how they were able to overtake the entire regions of this country. It is not doubt, it is not pride. The histories, the testimonies are there. You can see for yourself. So after the Igbos at that time, by independence, of course, by merits, have prepared themselves to fit in into most of the government parastatals or offices, because they needed people who are lettered, who are educated to occupy those positions in order to build a very healthy system. But that earned them the envies of most of the regions or ethnic nationalities. They begin to see an Igbo man to be dominance, to be oppressing or suppressing them. That is not true. It was made purely on merits. And they merited those positions at those times. But over time, that ends, of course, so much envy, bitterness, and hatred, of course, against the Igbos. Yes, you can come in very quietly in a program. Possibly we will see you later. But that is the case of the Igbos' experience. Rather than tapping into that ingenuity, industriousness of an Igbo man to build a system, to build a nation, encourage industrialization, the ingenuity within them to advance all regions to the advantage of all, they begin to see an Igbo man as a threat, of course, to their own interests or to their own existence. But that notwithstanding, an Igbo man has not given up in the spirit of doggedness, ingenuity, of course, of moving ahead. As you can see today, an Igbo man across the entire regions of this country have contributed more than 60 to 80% of the development of those regions. Count the entire states in this country, Nigeria, including Lagos. Apart from the presence of the government, of the federal government, Igbos, what individuals have contributed, Igbos contributed 90% to the development. They come to a bush, a forest, they turn it to an estate, they turn it to a township. But Igbos, not just the Igbo ethnic nationalities, but those defunct Biafran regions. Yes, they move the widely traveled people. They travel wide across the country, across Europe and all that today. They are making great waves, and we can attest to that, that Igbos, wherever they are, of course, are not to be neglected. They can't hide. Of course, just as the head of a cow cannot hide in the pot of soup. That is how an Igbo man is across the entire regions of the world. Today, people who were once oppressed, suppressed, almost annihilated, eventually picked up become the dominant factor in terms of commerce, economy, and technology today. They drive the technology hubs of the country. Needless to talk about importation and all that. It is the Igbos, of course, who commands the authority. Why? Because of the openness, open-mindedness, and acceptance of an Igbo man uh, to see every other region as his own home. That was the greatest mistake they made. But they never knew that they could not be accepted as they see everywhere as their home. So they want to develop wherever they found themselves, and of course, enhance the societal, of course, living within those regions, and contributes enormously to the government of that country through tax and other levies contributed to those regions. They boost the economy, the commerce of those regions, and of course, but what has that earned an Igbo man? It has earned him more hatred, more jealousy, more restiveness. Needless to talk about that. Now, what I'm saying, how can Ohanaeze, who are they representing? Do they seek the consent? Of course, we must answer the question, who are they representing? The sacrilege done against an Igbo man. Of course, in 1962, you saw Operation Wetie, how many Yorubas were lost during the rift between Akintola and Awolowo. It was so heavy that several people were lost in the western region. And you begin to ask, of most recent, 3 Yoruba monarchs, Obas, were killed. Unfortunately, around January this year, within 2 weeks, 3 of them were killed by some assailants, alleged to be the Fulanese militias. Now, in 1937, in 1945, in 1953, of course, in 1966, and which culminated to the Nigerian Biafra Civil War in 1967, was as a result of the massacre of the Igbo people across the northern regions. As if they don't come from anywhere, they are sacrificial lambs that can be taken to the slaughter at any time. And unfortunately, of most recent, we are seeing what is happening today. The killing that is going on, the unknown gunmen in the eastern regions, and the supposed Ohanaeze and Igbos has not one day come up to condemn the notorious activities, the killings, the disappearance of the Igbo youths within the region. And today, they are making plans to go and apologize for the killing of Sultana of Sokoto during the Nigerian military coup. Inasmuch I don't support the killing of anyone, but it is an act of irresponsibility, an act of cowardice, an act of stupidity to drag the entire Igbo race to mud by condescending too low to accept the guilt or responsibility of the military coup that was carried out by the Nigerian military personnel. And you want to accept the responsibility that it was the Igbos who are responsible. May your generation and that's after them be the ones to accept such shame. It is quite unfortunate. It is Nigerian coup. Coup and nothing short of that. Most Igbos were killed. Of course, most other regions, the Yorubas, was killed. And other central regions, or not central, of course, everybody was killed who is a target to that, regardless of whatever happens in the long run. But the reality is that there is conspiracy, there is a cover up that needed to be exposed so that the people can see the truth. Igbos were not responsible for the coup, and as such cannot take responsibility of what they do not partake in. There is nowhere in history where the Igbos gathered and plotted against the killing of the Sultana of Sokoto of blessed memory. So no way, there is no justifiable reasons why an average Fulani could consider it to be an Igbo coup. But the Ohanaezes and their chronics want to force the Igbos to accept the guilt and, of course, become a sacrificial lamb in their own country home. An Igbo man has not gone to Sokoto to invade the Sokoto communities to take with the intention to take over their land, to kill them, and to occupy their lands. It has never been in the subconsciousness of an Igbo man. An Igbo man can be found in Sokoto with the intention of doing business, making his money, and finding his way out, contributing to the development of those regions, and of course, getting away with that. He has no time, he has no intention of invading over communities, his host communities, to kill them, to massacre them, to rape their women, to kill their children, and to take over those ancestral homes. It has never happened in the history and will never happen because it is not in the culture, it is not in the composition, the mindset of an Igbo man. What is interested is to do his business, and he needs peace, he needs coherence, he needs to be in cordial relationship with those regions or the community he found himself to make his business. So how comes an Igbo man will be forced to accept guilt, to accept responsibility of what an Igbo man has not contemplated all through his lifetime? This conspiracy or culture of silence must be broken these days. We must tell ourselves the truth. One useless Efilefu said, who called himself Nnamdi, said, I'm talking just to get subscribers. He's one of the most stupid persons. I don't insult people's personalities or that of my intelligence, my listeners, but I'm provoked. You can see how low, how shabby his mentality is when you're discussing issues of importance and people are taking it for granted. What do I need subscribers for? Yet it is a way of encouraging us so that YouTube can push the videos. And of course, we can be encouraged to buy data and all that. But that is not the drive. That is not the motive. That is not the driving force. The passion is to educate the masses, is to make them understand that we cannot continue to hide under deception, under cover up, and think we can move an inch forward. It is not possible. We must rise to tell ourselves the truth, to tell ourselves, to give the true narration of what's transpired within the country. And of course, eventually address the myriads of problems bedeviling us. So whosoever the Ohanaezes is, God will punish anyone who dares to drag the Igbo race to the mud, to force them to accept the guilt of what they never and have never been indicted for. They want to create and push some narratives that is in Zogo, Chukwuemeka and Zogo, that did this and that did that. Is it serving as an Igbo military or the Biafra military? Yes. So why should this acts of the Nigerian military be attributed to an Igbo man? And you want to create that false narrative to hold down the entire race of the Igbos and drag them to mud. The God of heaven will silence you. Whosoever that is planning to silence the Igbo race under any disguise of to drag them to mud or to subjugate them, the God of heaven and earth, the Chukwukika Biama, will fight a just cause. The land will swallow such people, will not harbor such people. It is a sacrilege. It's an injurious harm. It's an injurious harm method against the Igbos, and this cannot be acceptable against the Igbos ideology, against the Igbos personalities, against, of course, what an average Igbo man represents. What? Okay, sorry for the little interruption in the network system. So, what am I saying? It is against the entire humanity, against the entire race, against the gods of the land, against the consciousness of an Igbo man, to be forced to accept that the coup carried out by the Nigerian military was an Igbo's agenda. It's quite unfortunate. It was gathered that the reason for that coup was to take away an Igbo man who happens to be the ceremonial president of them, Zik, and Tafawa Balewa, and install Awolowo of the West, which means even the coup intentionally was against an Igbo man. So how comes the Igbos, through the irresponsible personalities who call themselves Ohanaeze, I have never been so disappointed in this so-called social cultural group on the most recent leaders, who unfortunately are useless, by my opinion. I don't care what you think about that. By my opinion, they are useless and irresponsible. How could you be thinking such at this time? So you go and apologize to the Fulanis and ask them to pardon you for the atrocities that was committed by an Igbo man during the war during the coup that led to the death of Saturn. How many Igbos were lost in the north? How many of these Igbos has been compensated? How many justice has been asked, demanded for the gruesome murder of these families? Not just the fathers, the mothers, the children were killed in the most gruesome manner. In 1937, 1945, 1953, of course, partially 1962, 1966, and the colossal damage was done in between 1967 and 1970. How many of the Ohanaezes have demanded justice for those who were killed without any justifiable reasons, without committing crime against the state, and the state refused to protect them, to give them the shield, the protection as part of the citizen of Nigeria? So there have been this division, there has been this segregation, there have been this deliberate, intentional violence or conspiracy to annihilate an average Igbo man. Or possibly, if it's not possible to annihilate him, to reduce him to a point that he remains redundant and cannot contribute to his own progress in the first instance, let alone contributing, be seen in the national scale or pedestal. It is quite unfortunate that those who you call the supposed elders are being described as okenye no n'ulo egwu maobu, an elderly man who is in the house and the ships that were tethered by the children gets tied up by the rope, and they watch those sheep dying. They are watching the ships dying. Of most recent, you have seen the restiveness in the east, and most well-meaning Eastern people or Igbo people are calling for peace, providing solutions to what can bring a lasting peace in the eastern regions. But the enemies of the Igbos of the eastern regions don't want to subscribe to those advice which they knew, if implemented, will restore peace, will restore harmony, will restore serenity within the eastern region. So they are bent-head in ensuring that the Igbo region or community remain in chaos, remain shattered, remain destroyed economically, of course, and otherwise, to ensure that the Igbos will have no place to call their home. Prior to this time, the Igbo region has been seen, or the eastern region has been perceived by global statistics observation to be one of the most peaceful regions in Nigeria. But today, the reverse is the case because of sponsored, acrimony sponsored killers that were brought in to invade entire communities. What has Ohanaeze done to ensure that peace is restored in the regions? What has the Ohanaeze done to ensure that the governments or the governors are cautioned, of course, in the excesses of quest to crush, to suppress the people, and of course, instill fear in them and keep them in bondage? That is what you cannot do for an average Igbo man. You can't cow an average Igbo man. You can suppress him and kill him, but whosoever is left will continue the fight. So the only solution profiled how peace, harmony can be restored in the Igbo region or the eastern region is the release of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi. And on the 19th of March, he affirmed that position, that he is a leading voice that is respected. He earned himself that position. It is not the one the Ohanezes are parading themselves, that you are the Igbo leader, you are the spokesperson of who? Who recognize you? Who accept you? Because of how gullible, how deceptive you have shown to be. So a leader is one who should be admired, who should be cherished by the people or his subjects. You cannot force it on people. You can't fake it. You can't buy it with money. You must earn it. You must earn the respect of the people. You must earn, of course, the acceptance, their commendation. That was what Nnamdi did. Beforehand, people were skeptical about his person, but when they saw his honesty, his commitment, his sincerity, of course, he gave his all, he sacrificed everything that he represents for the service and the emancipation of his people. When they saw such rare personality, of course, they have to stand, they have to listen to him. They have to believe him. That is what happened. It was not just end overnight. They saw the determinations, even when he was cajoled, he was bribed, he was induced. I mean, he refused to accept that. How many of the Ohanaezes can do that? How many of them have such records? Or almost near such record? It is not possible. You are now what you can think, rather than thinking of how to provide a lasting solution to secure the communities within the eastern region. You are now planning, you are now engaging your energy and time to ridicule the Igbo race, to subjugate the Igbo race, and bring them to the state of despondency, to the state of, I mean, total humiliation. To an average Nigerian Igbo man will now be perceived to be responsible for the calamity that Nigerian security operatives, personnel, conspired or ganged up against themselves. For whatever reasons, I don't care. They should take responsibility for whatever has happened, not the Igbo race. Of most recent, how many Igbos have been killed? In the thousands disappearing. What has Ohanaeze Ndioshi, Ohanaeze Ndiama? What has the, who are you, Ohanaeze? Chigozie Igbo, or my family? Of course, we don't believe in your whatever you represent. You're just representing your political and socio-cultural group who is only interested in whatever comes to their pockets. If there is no true representations which reflect the masses which position, you are not just taking a walk, you are not leading anybody. You're rather leading your family to destruction. This man said, okay, thank you so much. Well, we are not here to make anyone happy. Or if you choose to be sad, well, that is good. But the truth must be told. And we are here to make expositions and side-by-side analysis of what has transpired. So I've been able to clear the doubts. Should there be anyone thinking that Igbos are culpable, are guilty of what? Look at the Boko Haram killing in the north. In all the killings, there have not been any command on order given or any marching order for the entire community where they are operating to be wiped off. Just as what happened in Okwama. Has there not been killing in the north? Has there not been invasion of even military base? Of most recent, the military base, of course, in Borno State was, in Niger State, was vacated. The military vacated their post after the onslaught by the Boko Haram and the other militias, jihadists. Nobody ordered the communities to be wiped off in revenge of the military personnel that have been consistently killed. Consistently killed in the northern region of this country. If you have to make assessments of the billions that have been expended in the northern region, that would have been enough to build 10 Dubais. The military, the money that had been voted in the fight against insurgency in the north would have been enough to turn the entire northern region to the most inviolable region of the world. Needless to talk about the casualties, the military casualties that have been recorded in the north. And yet you have not seen any northern governor calling for the massacre of their northern brethren. They will seek a way, of course, to protect them and to shield them from any military incursion. But if it were to be in the east, they will be used as political stooge to kill their own people. Because you want to build a dynasty that will live forever. But about 4 years, 8 years, you are gone. But the damage you have done, the sacrilege, the injurious treatment you have meted on your people will live beyond you. We live beyond your unborn children. It is quite sad. Why in supposed country you have different laws, different approaches. People have been treated different way. When the certain happens in a particular region, when it gets to a particular region, it will take unusual dimension. You begin to ask, what prompted this? What informed this sacrilege? What informed this hostility? Why should the entire community be wiped up? Nobody is in support of the killing of any man, whether in military uniform or civilian. But the reality is, those people that kill those military men are not ordinary, as they may describe it, bloody civilians. As I day one never chop belly full, I see they look for money to buy data. Now AK-49, now I go buy. This data I'm using is just by strong head, because it is necessary that I must express my feelings about what is happening. And you think the sponsors of these Boko Harams are just ordinary men on the streets? Huh? Metamorphosing to be bandits and all that? These are state-sponsored men who are in control of the natural resources of those northern regions, and of course, by extension, the entire country, are the sponsors of this atrocity. That's why the late Abacha said, any crisis that is beyond 24 hours, that is sustained beyond 24 hours, has the sponsor of the state. Some state actors are responsible for such. And there's a clear case, Nigerian case cannot, of course, be considered otherwise. The billions of dollars that have been expended in the fight against insurgency for the last 2 decades would have been enough to build 10 Dubais, to transform the entire regions. But look at the eastern region, where most of these resources come from. How backward, how retarded they have been left. They only struggle on personal or communal development. You see, communities building schools, communities building renovation schools, mending roads, and all that, helplessly. After the Civil War, we thought that the hostility will end. We thought that the ethnic bigotry and, of course, will end, to foster coherent, to foster nationality or patriotism. But that was not the case as far as Nigeria is concerned. Those who should have entrenched good governance, reconciliation, reconstruction, and rehabilitation failed. One of them is still living today, go on. He promised reconstruction, reconciliation, and rehabilitation of the entire eastern region, most pronouncedly the Igbo speaking regions, of course, of the defunct Biafran. He never did that. And today, the nemesis is catching up with everyone. Today, Gowon people are being killed, they have been massacred, they have been pushed out of their communal settings and replaced by the same people. They aligned together to fight, to annihilate the Igbo race. The Fulani militias are on rampage, killing the communal settlers, occupying their lands. Uncomfortable communities have been renamed under the watch of Gowon, and he appears to be helpless. Today, look at what Jos is experiencing. The entire North Central is not at peace. These are people who march down to the Biafran territory or defunct territory, massacred, killed, raped. Over 3 million children died. And yet there have not been justice for these children. Ohanaeze have not seek to call the attention of the government that enough of the killings, that of 1967 to 1970 have not been addressed. So why will you continue in the killings? They remain mute, they remain silent because they are perpetual slaves. They have sold their conscience, they have sold their dignity, and they have sold whatever they represent as humans. And as it stands today, even the Yorubas are marginalized. They are crying today. We are part of those who formed alliance against the Eastern people, the Biafrans. They are crying today. Their own obas and kings are being killed helplessly without protest. Most of the communal communities in the West, people has fled. There are no people occupying that because of the activities of the invaders or Fulani marauders. Injustice done to anyone unaddressed have a way of coming back to you. So when you see an unjust act meted on anyone, you have to speak out. That is what my grandfather told me. So that is the secret of life. Don't be in a place where conspiracy is being carried against an innocent man and you put your hand in support of that. Don't conspire. Don't gang up against an innocent man. Run away. Reject whatever you might be offered to do that. That is the secrets of life. The secrets of being acceptable before God. And God will remain your defense. I'm not saying anything to ridicule anyone or to insult the person of anyone, but the truth needed to be told, even when it is hard. This culture of silence that have kept us in the dark, in the wheel of motionless and despair, disaster looming, and of course, we are trapped in this mess. Trapped in this mess. Today, the Yorubas are calling for the disintegration of Nigeria. Regardless that a Yoruba extraction happens to be the incumbent president of the country. They have never felt well either. Most of them are shouting a bimpami, which have never happened in the history of Nigeria. That they will be shouting, a crowd will be shouting. Instead of eulogizing and praising the president, they are shouting a bimpami, a vote of no confidence. We are hungry under 6 months of this current government. A vote of no confidence was passed. That what else do you need to know that Nigeria is not working? It's not working for me. It's not working for anybody. Possibly for selected few. Even though it's working for you, do you have the peace, the security to enjoy whatever you think is working for you? That's why most persons are moving with their families away from the shores of this country. Nigerians are living on daily basis with no intention of coming back. They are fleeing their own region. They are fleeing their own supposed countries. Some of them, when they get overseas, they abandon the Nigerian identity and claim other nationalities. There are many of them. So I can't identify with this country. Most of them told their international passport. It was on the social media. Why? Because their hope was dashed. when they thought there was a ray of hope, but suddenly it was shattered. So why can't we tell ourselves the truth? We have come to our wit ends. If we don't say the truth, we will be consumed. And if we say the truth, of course, we possibly might save the remnants of humanity within this contraption. Things are not working. The militaries are being killed. I mean, we have more widowers, more widows, orphans within the military cycle. Able military personnel has been killed across the entire region. Do you think that is a good omen? Do you think that is palatable? That is acceptable? These are human beings. Who possibly, because of their commitment to the Nigerian government, have been used as a sacrificial lamb. Yes. Okay, so of course, that is the truth. Nothing but the truth. Okay, Biafra, here we move. The reality is that Nigeria is not working for anybody. We are more divided along tribal lines, sentiments, and others. And when we got it right, after the Civil War, as Philip Effiong said, if we fail to address this injustice meted on Biafrans, their children will rise one day and fight you again. There could be a possibility of another confrontation between the both nations. The Yorubas have added, of course, to the cause. An average Yoruba man who don't believe in Nigeria is calling for Duduwa nation. The Arewas are calling under any disguise. The major reason why the Boko Harams remains a formidable force or movement for Islamic State is that it's been sponsored by heavyweights from the north and of course from foreign aids. Why they could procure ammunition more stronger than that of Nigeria, and they can sack the military, Nigerian military base, and overrun them and cut away with that. Of course, you saw of most recent about 2 days ago or so, where the appointed Boko Haram integrated into Nigerian military police. They ganged up and attacked some military base. They attacked some custom base, police stations. They bombed them, attacked them. These are people wearing Nigerian uniform, people who were considered to be for repentant Boko Haram. They invaded the instrument of the state. There is danger looming. Believe it or not, there's something going on the ground. If the so-called repentant Boko Haram, who are radicals, and they say they have repented, integrated, giving Nigerian uniform to come and protect I and you, it means we are in danger. Unless otherwise, we begin to plan an alternative. How to safeguard ourselves, because your safety is the primary responsibility of yourself. You're the chief security of yourself. If those who wear Nigerian uniform or military camouflage with Nigerian guns and bullets could turn against Nigeria Because attacking police station is attacking the state, Nigeria itself. Blowing up military base, attacking the military base, even in Kaduna, is against Nigeria. And now those who have infiltrated into the military, into the police, are now agents of this agenda. It was just an eye-opener. Of course, we just saw the list. That's why the fight against Boko Haram will never cease. Will never be successful. Because ever before any move is made, they have their men there who can leak the information and, of course, get their people prepared or to ambush the Nigerian military and wipe them off. That's why he records unimaginable casualties. Because an enemy is within, an enemy has infiltrated the Nigerian security architecture and gradually is taking over the military architecture and system to unleash their main agenda of overrunning the entire country and declaring an Islamic state. So those still living in denial of the realities could be, of course, doing that to their own peril, to their own destruction. But the realities keep staring at us. By day, we continue to see it. Melafia made the very frantic revelations before his death. And nobody knows what, of course, led to his death, but it was whatever happens. But the reality is that I was opportune to listen to most of his revelations, which, of course, most of you did. And those things are playing out today. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, in his full wisdom, of course, made several revelations. I was frantic about that. That it's high time we call it a day. Let every regions, of course, part their ways. Because we don't have a shared common ideology. We don't have it across boards. The ideology of an average Easterner is different from that of Westerner. Is different from that of clearly far different from that of the Northerner. And perception about life and events. So how do we cohabit? How do we forcing two different insoluble mixtures together? How do you want to get the perfect mixture? It's not possible. It's not possible. It cannot be possible. It is a waste of time and efforts. Any effort geared toward keeping Nigeria one, even with the costly blood of an Igbo man, will be an effort in futility. Why? Because that seed of discord had been sown. That seed of hatred, that seed of agony, that seed of pain, unaddressed injustice over decades have settled in the mind of an average Igbo man, regardless of wherever he is. He is now seeing clearly that you intentionally meant evil for them. And as such, you cannot convince them to believe in the entity called Nigeria. Everyone, of course, whatever happens, but that is the reality. That is the reality. Even the incumbent president of Nigeria once said that he never believed in Nigeria. Of course, maybe due to Abiola being denied his mandate and the June 12th and what have you. But that statement is very heavy. It's very heavy. So if he's claimed he had never believed in one Nigeria when he's younger, being a president of Nigeria cannot change the opinion of the younger Nigerians today who have not been given any hope of future to believe in Nigeria. Look at the endemic corruptions here and there. Even those who you call the younger ones, embezzling up to 90 billion, while the entire state is impoverished, why child mortality death is the highest in the history of the whole world. Nigeria has the highest death child mortality rate because they don't have adequate health system, healthcare. In fact, I went to one of the national hospitals, general hospitals. It was, in fact, it takes only God to survive in this part of the world. So, what exactly is working? People cannot afford basic healthcare system. Even to eat becomes almost impossible, even as graduates. This is only country where PhD holders were applying for truck driver. You've not had it? Not ordinary uh, akara paper, which is BSc, not masters. PhD holders applying for driver to drive truck. Does that shows that is hope for the teeming populations of the youths who are already giving up? As an average Nigerian today, he has opportunity to japa, he will not contemplate, he will jump on it. Most of them taken through this Mediterranean Sahara regions, the most hazardous regions, just to escape the pains, the injustice meted on them in this country. It cut across the entire ethnic nationalities today, not just the Igbos, not just the Biafras, not just Igbos. Igbos of recent are crying. You see that they have oil. I met a lady. He was weeping and crying that there is oil in her father's backyard, but she could not be absorbed in the oil company, even being a graduate. She in the Lagos hustling, roaming the streets, hawking as a graduate from the so-called Niger Delta. I'll be Niger Delta. We get oil. You get oil that you have not seen the impact of the oil in your life. Your generations have not benefited from the oil you claim you get. Will be Niger Delta. The Niger Delta like me now. He must said now part of Niger Delta now. Throughout my varsity days, undergraduate days, I never enjoyed a single bursary allowance. The first year, I filled the form, continued to expect eternity. The first year, of course, rolled by. The second year, I said, let me give it another shot, a trial. You never can tell. I never received anything. Then the third year, I said, I cannot. They can go to hell with their. Even those who applied never got anything. But even when provisions were made, it never it never got to the hands of those who should receive it. But in this same country, I was told by one of the prof that they have privileges of being ticketed to go and eat turkey in one of the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Those days, they will be ticketed during the weekends to go and make shoppings for themselves. You can now understand how bad the system has gone. Today, an average Nigerian cannot give her children her worst basic education. Basic. There are no facilities. No, look at secondary, primary school. They are just moving like locusts. You see all these locusts in the village, or all these caterpillars. When they invade over a tree, the leaf of a tree, they will eat it up in less than 24 hours. The rooms are not conducive. People are in a setting that should not, a student should not be more than 20 in a class. You see 100 and something. How will they learn? How can the teacher or the instructor give them adequate attention? But the same country, billions or trillions have been looted every month. And you want such system to continue? Well, of course, the time will come when people will revolt. It is inevitable. When the injustice are not being addressed, it remains inevitable because there is an instinct in man, of course, to seek for survival. When the existence of a man is being threatened, man will adjust to annul the effect of such threats. And of course, the adjustment might lead to revolution, might lead to, of course, a very serious fracas. Those who think they are securing themselves and their generation unborn by looting the public treasury are just building the enemies, armies of enemies that will devour them and whatever they are left with. That is the truth. So how can a country, you have one person have luxurious more than 20 luxurious cars? He's not even driving, he's not tampering on, just parked. Lying west 20. You are not selling a, you are not a car dealer. You have 50, 100, 200 packed in your garage, which is not the proceed of your sweat, but accumulation of people's sweat through the seats. Are you expecting to keep quiet? Well, it's a matter of time and those issues will be addressed. But what I'm saying in reality, of course, I haven't been expressed here, is that one, the injustice must be addressed. Otherwise, of course, people will rise up to address the injustice, and that will not be in the interest of anyone. When that happens, there could be falling apart, just as we are seeing today. There is enormous bitterness and hatred which cannot be healed except those myriads of problems unattended to, stemming from the Civil War and what led to the Civil War. So you cannot solve a problem by coming through deception, through cunning, craftiness. You must come with openness and sincerity. And you cannot come with the barrels of gun, because anytime the opposition takes up arms, you are in danger. The same blood that flows through you flows through them. It's just a matter of whosoever gets at others first. The next person will get down. That is reality. When you resort to the use of force, coercion, you're just making people to become more hardened, to sign to die. But that is unfortunately where Nigeria is today, where nobody knows what happens next. But the reality is that things have fallen apart. And you don't expect things to remain the same. There have been consistent agitation, sustained never in the history of Nigeria, that the Biafran's resistance force has built such energy, momentum, so commitment for the quest of the actualization of the Biafran state. There have never been. The level of resistance and ruthlessness. I mean, commitment to that cause, because they believe that the chances of surviving in Nigeria has been exhausted, that the chances of saving Nigeria as one indivisible entity has been bastardized. And they believe the only way to defend themselves is to face the monster, to confront the monsters head on. And to them, it is better to die fighting than dying a coward. But of course, that comes with a price, of which definitely they have expressed the readiness to pay. And what does that mean? There will be continuous restiveness within the region. So Ohanaeze calling in most deceptive, distortive manner that you should go and apologize to Fulanis. According to some research, I have not confirmed that, or some, of course, write-ups, that since 1800, that the Fulanese has killed more than 60 million Nigerians. But I have not confirmed that. I have not been able to confirm or ascertain the or authenticity of such claims. There have been killings motivated by hatred, by, of course, the intention to conquest, to conquer a region and take over the region. As Tafawa Balewa also said, that they are going to dip the Quran in the sea, in the Atlantic. What does that mean? Of course, it's a script that most of the radicals are trying to play out. But the reality is that if Nigeria is not working as it is today, what then do we do? No, what then do we do? If living together cannot foster unity, equity, fairness, progress, then what is the need of being together? No, that is a basic, simple logic. If living in one house cannot guarantee your safety, if you always live in fear of being killed or poisoned, then what is the need of remaining in such hostile or very poisonous relationship that does not foster any unity or coherence? No, we have to tell ourselves the truth. Let me also know your own response or reactions. Please don't forget to hit the subscription button, share these videos, let it get viral. And if you can check it, let it get to the Ohanaezes to retract their steps, not to insult the entire Igbo race. Because my people say, Igbos are not guilty, regardless of whatever narrative that some persons of quarters are trying to, of course, push across. People have known the truth, and that you can't take from them. They understood the Nigerian history and the antecedents, and of course, the insincerity on the part of successive government to address those issues. And that have brought us where we are today. It has brought us where we are today. That a country that is endowed with crude oil does not have one functional refinery for the past 60 years plus. One functional refinery that can be owned by an individual. But a whole country cannot cite one functional refinery just for local consumption. What a story. A sad one for that. A sad one for that. That would have created more employment for the teeming populations of the graduates being trooped out from the schools every year without nowhere to be absorbed. Most of the multinationals have winded up, have left Nigeria. Then what hope do you have? Except you are believing or the government propaganda is no longer selling. Because you cannot tell me you are weighing investors, you have no power, stable power, you have supply, you have no security, and you have not created enabling environments, and you have not built the capacity, the human capacity or development in terms of technology, in terms of skills for your own supposed citizens to take advantage of the abundance opportunity. Of course, that could be possible. And you don't create, you are still importing fuel in a country that owns crude. Those people that are refining it, is it with two heads? You have a Jokuta steel, you have the raw, you have the iron raw, ore, and all that. And it's in the state of moribund. Then where do you create jobs? Where do you build hope for the teeming populations of these youth? Unfortunately, there are still people on the payrolls of those establishments, but they are not productive. They are being paid heavily and yet not production. Who is deceiving who? How long will this continue? In fact, the Nigerian supposed leaders or political leaders don't like this country. They hate this country. And that's why they don't want the country to succeed. So they cannot continue to deceive us. We have come to know the truth, because you can't say you love your country, you embezzle what is meant for your people, development and growth, to build hospitals and roads, where you see accidents being recorded. The highest accidents are majorly on the roads due to the dilapidated state of the road, deplorable state of the roads, major roads, highways that have become dens of robbers, where people are robbed, where people's belongings are being carted away, people are being killed, kidnapped. That is not a rocket science. Where is that humanity? Where is that consciousness of the human existence in us? How long will you live on this planet Earth to make life most miserable to others, to unborn generations, to generations alive and the posterities to come, giving them no reason to exist or to continue to live? It is quite sad and very unfortunate. On this note, I want to call it a day. Thank you for being part of this broadcast this moment. I wish you the best of the week, and of course, God's divine coverage and protection and provisions for you and your loved ones, in as much as you continue to uphold, of course, the humanity and promote the cost of justice wherever you might reside. I remain Chigos Ndibo, the host anchor. Don't forget, once again, to support us as much as you can. There is an available button there where you can support us through the super chat. And of course, in any way possible, to continue to do this work, to encourage us, continue to do this work. We are determined, we are not backing down, whether there is any encouragement or not. It's a passion, it's a service to humanity. And to this end, we have come thus far. And God willing, of course, we continue to serve humanity, to educate the populace of what needed to be done. And as a matter of urgency, we cannot continue to live in deception. How can we have a population that should be an advantage? I go through the streets of Lagos. I see children begging. Even in Lagos, I think that is one thing the government of Lagos must address. How can children be begging, irrespective of the where they come from, their ethnic alignment or what? In a sense society, that shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be tolerated. But because the government is indifferent, it does not care about whatever happens to the average persons. Whatever they care is whatever that comes to their pockets. Why not enact a law? No child under the age of schooling, especially the primaries, the age of a primary school, will be found on the streets of Lagos. If truly Lagos is the center of excellence, start from there. Each local government should be mandated. And by doing that, you must make an alternative for them. And of course, unfortunately, there is no job anyway, except you create one for yourself. That's why most people are indulging in crime and criminality. They are unequal. I heard a very horrible story, which I may not disclose here. Very close to me, what is happening. It's quite sad. It's unimaginable, but that is the realities of our time. May God continue to keep everyone safe, and including I myself. I know most people may not be okay with this broadcast, but whatever happens, I'm only expressing my candid opinions and, of course, some feelings over issues and matters. I'm not in any way supporting any violence. But the truth of the matter is, when peaceful resolution becomes impossible, you could push people to otherwise. If you're saying the truth and you're not saying it because of personal reasons or interests, well, whatever happens, you will be held responsible. If the government is seeing what is happening and refuse to address it because of some interests, vested interests, well, it's a matter of time. We all receive, of course, whatever we have done on this earth. If not now, certainly thereafter, or even with God, we can't escape that. But we must promote humanity and build coherence within the system. And there can be coherence, there can be acceptance, except there is justice. There's equity and fairness, which is the tripods stand on which the existence of Nigeria is predicated, where justice, peace shall reign, where justice, equity, that Nigeria shall be a state, an independent state predicated on justice, equity, and fairness for all. So if those items are missing, there is no Nigeria. And you can't force people whose heart has been stolen away, whose passion and interest in Nigeria, in a cause, has been taken away. You can't force it on them. You're just wasting your time. It's a matter of time it will show up. If people have given up, if Nigeria is dead in the mind of people, some group of persons, you can't resurrect it. There's nothing you can do to resurrect something that is dead in the minds of an average Igbo man. Of course, Nigeria is dead. I tell you the truth. I am telling you the reality. Go and make findings. Even those who thought that P2B might possibly clinch to power, P2B cannot be the problem of Nigeria. The problem of Nigeria is bigger than individuals. The problem of Nigeria is in the foundation. It's bigger than P2B. So that is not, it's just a distraction as far as I'm concerned. It's a distraction. Probably sponsored from any quarters. I don't care. The problem of Nigeria is in the foundation, as most constitutional lawyers have expressed, that Nigeria, the constitution of Nigeria, is an illegal constitution. I mean, well informed personalities who studied constitution law, of course, came to say that this constitution is not the representation of the people's will. I think you can continue to force it on persons with the use of gun and barrels, bullets and barrels of gun. Well, let's see how far that could be sustained. But the reality is that it's not feasible and it's not sustainable, because people will always rise to annul the effects of whatever adjustments or threats to their existence. Unfortunately, that is where it, Nigeria is today. So we must rise to understand, as humans, as humanity, we must address this myriad of problems. It is fundamental, it is foundational, that no one can solve it. Even the president, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu, cannot solve the Nigerian problem. Unless he's trying to deceive anyone, he can't solve Nigerian problem. Nigerian problem is bigger than Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Is bigger than all his kitchen cabinets. And I hope they don't live in denial. That is the truth. That is the truth. Where another, the supposed minority, I don't call anybody minority, in a sense society, in a true society, nobody is minority. You see people as part and parcel of a nation. If there is coherence and there is equity and fairness, nobody talks of ethnic alignments. The patriotism and nationality should have been the drive. But today, that is not the case. Even the founding fathers were tribal bigots, driven by sentiments and personal interests. Of course, that is what culminated to this in-depth corruption, to this backwardness. Of course, Nigeria has been trapped in over the years. It's a build-up. It's not just this current government is not just the architect of the Nigerian problem. It has been compounded by successive governments over the decades, deepening and rotting, getting more worse than ever imagined. And we are trapped in these realities today. Nobody is assured of what happens next. Even our safety is not even guaranteed. We're only banking on the mercies of God and nothing more. The state can no longer guarantee the safety of her citizens. The what you call such states is a failed state. Any state that cannot guarantee the safety of her citizens or anyone resident within the territory described as a sovereign state is a failed state, because the primary responsibility of any responsible government is to prioritize the welfare of her citizens and everyone, law-abiding persons within the same enclave, and of course, the security of life and property of those individuals. Outside of this is a failed state, because the very essence of governance has been defeated. Defeated. And that is nothing but the truth. Now, in the context of these realities, we cannot judge or make up observations about the Nigerian states Has any Nigerian citizen felt secured in any part of the country? The answer to this question is no. Are the properties and interests of Nigerians defended by the states? Of most recent, we saw where there are some, of course, disparities. Some Nigerians uh, have been asked not to shop in certain supermarkets. Segregation. I mean, foreign nationals coming to Nigeria to segregate, to insult the Nigerians' intelligence, to insult the citizens of Nigeria. Why wouldn't they insult? Because the government never cared for her citizens. So other people will be relieved from what is happening. A Chinese man who was given some waivers to establish a company here will exploit the workforce who are Nigerians. We underpay them. We even put them on casual workers, deny them the entitlements, and yet nobody to address those wickedness. We have senators, the representatives, representing their stomach infrastructure, representing their born generation, not the masses. You don't address those things. Exploitations here and there. Why won't the people begin to see you as animals? That they are even doing you a favor, absorbing you in their companies and industries. Why? Because of the way the government have treated her citizens. Nobody is proud to be a Nigerian. If you're proud to be a Nigerian, let me see from this comment section. I challenge you to an open debate. Tell me, why are you a proud Nigerian? What makes you proud? Is it the killings, incessant killings or sufferings people have been entrenched in? No, what makes you a proud Nigerian? Even in international communities, most Nigerians are being treated in a way that is disgusting. You begin to ask, what exactly is the problem? They're being treated as criminals. They're being scrutinized and subjected to all level of scrutiny because of Nigerian green card, being a Nigeria, even without committing any crime. They are being presumed to be criminals. The way they are being subjected, unlike other nationals, and the government is not decisive in solving these issues. And the president, His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu, went in one of his trip abroad. He said, why wooing investors? He said, anybody that takes bribe, come and tell me. You already know that Nigeria is deep in corruption and bribery. And he said, whosoever that asks bribe, you should tell me. Which means that has been the order of the day. In the light of the Committee of Nations, Nigerians have been seen to be corrupt. And of course, the president affirmed to that by saying, anybody that took bribe from you, come and tell me. It's an indictment already. You can't deny that. You're speaking from experience. There's high propensity, possibility of being corrupted. I didn't say that. The current president, His Excellency, said that, admitted that. I'm just analyzing based on my, of course, logical positions. He wouldn't have said it better than what he said. And I know, I'm very sure, certain that he meant what he said because he understood that Nigerians are corrupt or have corrupt tendencies. That is true. And the Committee of Nations are still not in that light, then how do you expect them to come and invest? Where the senators, the House of Rep will make their own demand, the condition of operating. If it doesn't favor them, if it doesn't agree to their terms and conditions and other government high profile personalities within the corridor of power or the civil servant, if you don't settle them well, no way for you. You can imagine, of most recent, I took my son who was booked for an operation. I know how much I squeezed. Of course, I appreciate most of you that assisted me, especially uh, De Carlo. De Carlo, thank you so much. De Carlo. Mrs. Joy, thank you so much. You stood by me. Of course, you assisted in that course. And thereafter, after we have returned, Professor Okwade also assisted, of course, to get one or two things for the boy. And of course, I also appreciate Mami Kelechuku in that regard. Of course, thank you so much for whatever token you contributed to that. What I'm trying to say, in fact, I was almost empty, very empty after the process because it took more than half a million. Something that was budgeted less than that. A particular drug, one drug injection, 84 naira, 84,000. That was the needed 15 pieces, 84,000. I was even pleading. What did they call it again? Rosephine or whatever, I have forgotten. Not just to talk about other things. Upon that, one of the heads assistant or whatever they call them was asking me, I no go settle am. He said, why no? I know if you find something for my settle am now. Nobody help me go bring my boy from theater. I go settle you. Everything I settle. I look at if I say if I didn't tell her this. I just look her. I said, these people has no empathy. If there is a way I can convert you to money, I will convert you. Nonsense person. The way and manner she presented it as if it is demanding, it is her right, and I must do that, otherwise she could do her worst. Then I was expecting her worst so that I would teach her a lesson. But of course, you have to understand that she shouldn't pass her level. That is the country we found ourselves. You're asking, by being on your duty post, doing what you are assigned, you are contracted to do in the hospital. Lawsuit for that matter. You want to take undue advantage of the persons or the relative of those persons. It's quite unfortunate. Because of that single, I never did anything. I have to settle some people who are very committed. There are people who are dedicated to their cause, regardless of how much stipend they receive. I really encourage and I ask God to bless those people. Some doctors are very kind, very, very good. I must recommend them for promotion, honestly. Dr. Opeleye, Dr. Iwala, Dr. Idowu, and all that. They are very excellent, and government should promote such people, encourage them before they flee from this country. Of course, if they are still within the country, they are great, they are experts. The humanity in them is unparalleled. They have the passion for their work, for the service to humanity, and such people should be commended. But what is the government doing? to take care of the health workers and their working conditions. With this happening in this country, it shows that even the health of an average Nigerian is not secured. Because one day you will come, you will not see any trained medical consultants or doctors in Nigerian hospitals. Maybe you'll be left with trade union workers and drug pushers who will now be administering prescribing drugs for the people. So what I'm saying in the very essence, the foundation has been tampered, has been destroyed, has been messed up. And the only way to get it right is to come back to that very foundation. The political will, the sincerity and commitment is what will save us energy, is what will save us time, and with what will save us from being consumed, because the impending doom is imminent if we don't address these issues. Of course, we all might possibly live, if we happen to be alive, or the next generation will live to regret it. On this note, I wish you the best of the week ahead, trusting God for your provisions, security, and what have you. Don't forget to share this video. Thank you for giving us a thumbs up. I thank you for, of course, being here this moment with Chigos and Igbo. I hope to have you in subsequent editions, God's willing. Remain blessed once again and have a very fantastic moment with your families and loved ones. But don't forget, we still have a task that is not done. And that task is the demand for justice. Not until that happens, equity and fairness, no community can grow beyond its ability to retain, to maintain, and to contain peace, equity, and unity of purpose, predicated on fairness, justice, and the good of all. But better still, there's nothing bad if we have decided, if we have understood that being together cannot foster any progress or unity for the Nigerian state. There's nothing wrong parting ways. When the Nigerian configuration was in regional parts, of course, there was very good progress recorded across board. Everybody contributing to the development of their regions at their own pace without any unhealthy competitions. People were exploring, rediscovering themselves, and of course, are making advancements using their comparative advantage. The North has enormous comparative advantage, the arable lands, which they can turn to gold. The West also has a comparative advantage, cocoa arable lands that are lying fallow. They have abandoned the cocoa farm, the cocoa pyramids, and all that. Everybody is choking eye in oil. The East never depended on the crude when they become the fastest developing economy globally. It was not oil that gave them such recognition. It was what? Intellect, brain, oboro, akonuche. So what has befallen us today? Of course, we're the architects of our problems, and when we fell, of course, in deep silence, maintain this silence of culture of silence without breaking it, then we'll be prepared for the worst. The worst is very much around us. but nobody knows when that will strike. That's why an issue of urgency is to address these issues. Let Mazi Nnamdi Kanu be released. And those gladiators, those non-state actors, catching on the absence of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will disappear. They will disappear to the thin air. Their job will knock. But because of some people who do not want the interests or the peace of the region, don't want to subscribe to that, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu made himself very clear. And that is with all honesty and sincerity. There are non-state actors who are cashing out, making the place unrest because of their political interests and the other economic interests. They want to remain relevant at the expense of the entire community and region. But that will only last for a while. Release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and let peace be restored. Release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and the Simon Ekpa will go back to his shield. That is the truth. It's a simple logic. He will control the system. And he has maintained that he is fighting for justice. And that justice is clearly seen by all. He's fighting to address the injustice in the system, which is staring at us today. As the former Minister of State or Defense, Theophilus Danjuma, who has served Nigeria in different capacities, came to say that Nigeria is becoming a disgrace to Committee of Nations. If Theophilus Danjuma, who have enjoyed all the privileges available in the Nigerian state, can come to break that silence, culture of silence, is no longer in his shield, is no longer hiding, pretending. It's in Nigeria, his country, where he have enjoyed privileges, oil wells, is becoming a disgrace to entire world because of what is happening, the endemic corruption, the injustice, the unfairness, the killings, within the system. Then will you hold me responsible? I never said it. I'm analyzing. And you can find it in the public domain. The same man said, when the ravaging Fulani marauders or militias were ravaging the entire North Central, he said, you should take arms and defend yourself. He said, take arms and defend yourself. That the government can no longer defend you. If we are to be an ordinary person, DSF would have come for the person. But he is saying the realities of our time. He have underscored, he have deliberated, he have some what you call classical information that is not privy, that is not available to the public. If he has come to say, defend yourself, he understood where he's going. He have weighed all options and know there is no sincerity, there is no commitment. In the third government, that was during Buhari time, he said, defend yourself, because he has understood there is a conspiracy, there is a script playing out, that not even the Buhari administration can guarantee the safety of these masses. People are being massacred, children are being killed, pregnant women are being hacked to death. The unborn fetus are being opened up, killed. Defend yourself. This is once defense minister in Nigerian government. So these are few people who are speaking out. They have seen the level of helplessness, of misery. Their own people have been subjected. These are the people who fought against Biafra and what Biafra represents. But today they are regretting their life, regretting their actions. If they have known, would have implemented the Ojuku solution to the mirrors of the problems we live in Nigeria, the Aburi Accord. They were the people who stood against it to match the innocent Easterners. Now, but has that solved the problem? Has that solved the problem of Theophilus Danjuma? Has the war declared against Biafra solved the problem of Nigeria? Even after people were decimated and killed, the entire Onitsha was leveled, another part of the Igbos regions. In less than 40 years, Igbos overtook the entire region. The entire region, who've never experienced single shelling. And the North today are telling us that the most impoverished. Isn't that an insult? You never experienced a shilling, you never experienced war, and you are calling yourself the most impoverished region. You have been within the corridor of power for barely 40 something years. And those Northerners cannot ask questions. They can't ask their politicians questions, political leaders questions. Why has our region become impoverished? We never experienced war. Why are we more impoverished than those who experienced war? Who were only given 20 pounds. 20 pounds, whether you're a millionaire or a billionaire. You forfeited all your treasure. But that 20 pounds today are becoming the envy of almost all ethnic nationalities within the Nigeria and across board. Igbos and the defunct eastern region, of course, are doing exceedingly well wherever they found themselves. Precisely the Igbos where the experience of the war was unimaginable, where over 3 million children died out of starvation. They were able to survive, to nurse the wounds of the war, to overcome the purported genocide, and have the liberty, the open-mindedness to also develop other regions, even those who are calling themselves the most impoverished region. When you consider the development, the contribution of the Easterners in those regions is almost 90%. Apart from whatever governments may have done, individuals went and developed those regions. You are not thinking, why am I against these people? Despite the oppression, despite the suppressions, despite the intimidations, despite the conspiracy against these people, they are still forging ahead. There must be something that is backing them up. There must be the hand of the living God with them. And you refuse to give them a chance to develop the entire region for the good of all. Well, if they have made up their minds to leave Nigeria, you can bet me with anything. Nothing can stop them. Nothing can stop them. Because they believe they have been pushed to the wall. They have been the giant in them, that consciousness in them to believe and accept that they are no longer an integral part of this country, has been well consolidated and settled in their minds and in the mind of the average or younger generations who are coming up today, finishing the fights. Just like Philip F. Young said, he said, these children, treat them well. If you don't treat these Biafrans well, their children will one day rise to fight you. Is that not the realities of today? Well, let's leave that until the next edition. Thank you for very much once again for being part of this interesting moment here. I'm wishing you the best of the week again. It's Chigos and Debo. This is Callwave TV, where unbiased reportage of events is being expressed here. Will come your way in subsequent editions with more exciting and intriguing, of course, experiences and news. Remember, blessed once again, but don't forget to remember that this teaching time says 9. Now or never, we must be decisive about our actions and must be bold enough to accept the truth, and that alone can set us free. Bye for now, until I see you again. Okay, this is my